deep within our hearts, in the love that grows between us. This is where the journey starts. There is hope in the stillness. There is solace in our friends and in the love that flows between us. This is where the isolation ends. Come full circle in a moment. Hold no shame in what you feel. This old world will keep on turning, and our broken hearts will heal. When the rain falls around you like your solitary tear, in the love that flows between us, know that thunder holds no fear. In the struggle you hold sacred, when the arrows pierce you through, in the love that flows between us, may your courage be renewed. There is music in each silence. There is promise in each day, and in the love that holds between us, may we always find our way. Come full circle in a moment. Hold no shame in what you feel. This old world will keep on turning, and our broken hearts will heal. There's a flame in the darkness, burning deep within our hearts, in the love that grows between us. This is where the journey starts. There is hope in the stillness. There is solace in our friends and in the love that holds between us. A sacred journey never ends. Yes, in the love that holds between us, a sacred journey.
Good morning. It's nice to see your beautiful faces. Whoops, here's my beautiful face. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. And you know where our church is located? Yep, right here in the heart of walkable Tarpon Springs, historic district, and is known as the home of the Innes paintings. My name is Judy Pickett, and I serve on the Board of Trustees as treasurer, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. We are a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us. This is a liberal community of all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. As such, ours is an active church, and everyone is invited to participate in all of our activities, whether you are a member or not. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, uutarpon.org, or you can discuss activities with church members or our membership chair. Our children are with us during the beginning of the service at this time. Hi, kids. And we will have a faith formation programming available later for them with Jamie Cruz. Children gather for their time together with her after the story. And if you'd like more information about our programming, please contact Reverend Kristina or see Jamie after the service. For those of you present with us in the building, we have connection cards available in the pews. If you fill one out and put in your information and put it in the offering plate or give it to one of our greeters, we will be able to keep in touch with you. We are delighted today to have Joe Jencks leading the service, titled Building Bridges Through Cultural Diplomacy. Joe is a 22-year veteran of the international folk circuit, an award-winning songwriter and a celebrated vocalist based in the Chicago area. He's known for his performances of beautiful music, social consciousness, and spiritual exploration. Joe delivers engaged musical narratives filled with heart, soul, groove, and grit, blending well-crafted instrumentals and vivid songwriting. Joe serves it all up with a lyric baritone voice that has an edgy richness of a good sea salt caramel. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, did you write that? Somebody wrote that for you. That's wonderful. Co-founder of the Harmony Trio Brothers Son, Joe has penned several #1 folk songs, including the ever-relevant Lady of the Harbor. He has become a fan favorite throughout North America and beyond, and Joe has performed and preached in over 200 Unitarian Universalist congregations in the US, Canada, and Ireland, and is also a dual US-Irish citizen. Joe has also been a cultural ambassador with the US State Department. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
We light this chalice this morning with humility and courage born of our history. We are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light this chalice. And as I light this chalice, please keep in your hearts the people of Buffalo, New York, who suffered a massive shooting, and hold them in your hearts.
Amen.
At this time, please turn to page 123 in the hymnal, Spirit of Love.
Wings that we free. I had the extraordinary privilege about 18 years ago to go into East Wenatchee High School in Wenatchee, Washington. I was asked to do a songwriting workshop with students for whom English was a second or even a third language for some of them. And it was an opportunity to discover for me for the first time truly that music is an international language, that there are ideas that can be conveyed emotionally through the music alone that capture what one is trying to communicate. And I remember when I was younger that my friends and I would always trade music in one form or another, whether it was trading records or tapes or CDs, that we would make mixtapes for each other and communicate the things that really spoke to us by sharing these playlists or these mixtapes with each other. And as I was sitting in the classroom with a bunch of students, mostly the children of migrant laborers who worked in the orchards in central Washington, I asked them what they wanted to write about, and it was very, very innocuous. Flowers, trees, birds, girls, boys, And finally, this one young woman, Perla, says, "A dónde pertenezco?" Where do I belong? To where do I pertain? Where is my place? And I thought, that's the story that needs to be told in this moment. And through their teacher and through about, 18 words of Spanish that I knew at the time, and their English, their assignment was to write in Spanish what they wanted to say and then translate it into English so that I could turn it into a song in English. And then at the end of the day, we got up at an all-school assembly in 3 sections of students, and I got up, each of us singing one of these 3 songs that we had written just in that day for the entire student body. And those that were disappeared even inside their own community, because of course many immigrants who have been here for a certain period of time will often shun the ones that have just arrived for fear of somehow being seen as part of this group or as opposed to part of this group. And it can be very hard on anybody, and I think especially hard on people in their teens to navigate this kind of social dynamic. So when Perla said, "A dónde pertenezco?" this felt like a really salient story to tell in some way or to give voice to, because the fact of the matter is any teenager feels this sense of not being connected to the world around them. You're not a child anymore, but people don't respect you as an adult or respect the knowledge that you have or the opinions that you have. And sometimes as we go through life, we find ourselves again and again feeling that sense of being lost, not knowing where it is we belong. And sometimes the easiest way to transcend that is to extend the hand of welcome to another person. By helping another person feel welcome, we find our place. We find the place where we belong. And so this song speaks to that a little bit. I think that sense of seeking a place where we belong transcends every age, every generation, every culture. Each one of us is looking for a place to call home.
Where do I belong? ¿Dónde pertenezco? Where do I come from? ¿De dónde vengo? Where will I go from here? ¿Para dónde iré de aquí? De aquí. Don't have anywhere to stay. Tengo donde quedarme. Going from town to town, yendo a pueblo, a pueblo, to look for a better life, para buscar una vida mejor, vida mejor. We are looking for communities, buscando comunidades with better opportunities, con mejores oportunidades. But who have we left behind? A quienes hemos dejado atrás, dejado atrás. Where do I belong? ¿Dónde pertenezco? Where do I come from? ¿De dónde vengo? Where will I go from here? ¿Para dónde iré de aquí? De aquí, de aquí, de aquí, de aquí.
And so it is, we keep looking for the place where we belong, and we keep seeking opportunities to help other people know that they belong. It is a lifelong quest, and I'm so grateful for the community here in Tarpon Springs at the Unitarian Universalist Church that keeps the door of welcome open.
Now is the time in our service when we take our offering for the work and welfare of this church. Ours is a free faith which must sustain itself financially. As treasurer, I know that. As treasurer, I know that. Please go to our website, uutarpon.org, and click the donate button, or you may mail your offering to the church at 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. For those of you with us in person in the sanctuary, place your offering in the plate as they are passed. Thank you.
I'm not sure there's ever been a time in my life when this song felt more appropriate to the world. We hold an awareness of so much conflict and strife in so many different places, abroad and at home. This melody written by Jean Sibelius in 1899, the words written in 1933 by Lloyd Stone, an elementary school teacher in Hawaii. This is my song.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunshine too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
We sometimes misunderstand what leadership really is. We expect it to come from the outside, and so we wait and listen for the sound of some mighty voice coming out of a loudspeaker. But real leadership comes from the quiet nudging of an inner voice. It comes from realizing that the time has come to move beyond preparing and into doing. That is why leadership is so often found in simple acts of self-expression. When, for example, we challenge a falsehood that has been advertised as truth, when we call injustice by its name, when we go out of our way to help another, or when we choose a career that is less about making money than about making a difference. These words from Madeleine Albright in 2007. A couple years later, she was giving a commencement address at a university and said this: "I have spent a lifetime looking for remedies to all manner of life's problems, personal, social, political, global. I am deeply suspicious of those who offer simple solutions and statements of absolute certainty, or who claim full possession of the truth. Yet I have grown equally skeptical of those who suggest that all is too nuanced and complex for us to learn any lessons, that there are so many sides to everything that we can pursue knowledge every day of our lives and still know nothing for sure. I believe we recognize truth when we see it, just not at first, and not without ever relenting in our efforts to learn more. This is because the goal we seek and the good we hope for comes not as some final reward, but as the hidden companion to our quest. It is not what we find, but the reason we cannot stop looking and striving that tells us why we are here." I received a phone call early in 2010 from the Chargé d'Affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Grenada, asking if I would be interested in coming to the Caribbean for a 2-week tour as a cultural ambassador. It was one of the most remarkable phone calls I have ever received. Once I got past the thought that somebody was playing a prank on me, I began to consider the possibility that this really was happening, and I've spent much of my life musically and politically as a bit of a dissident, as one who is, constantly trying to hold institutions accountable for their choices, whether it's family systems or the government of the United States of America and everything in between. So imagine my surprise when my own government calls on me to, go onto foreign soil and be a representative of the people. And this was during President Obama's administration. And I think there was a sense of really deeply wanting to build bridges throughout the world, to foster goodwill around the world, to try and offer some course correction for some of the more protectionist and isolationist and predatory foreign policies of previous administrations. But I was still very impressed that they wanted to send a leftist folk singer to other countries to represent the United States. And I embarked on that with some astonishment, both for the experience, but also because I realized that they needed me to wear a suit every day in the Caribbean in July. I owned one suit, and I was really broke at the time, and that suit happened to be ill-suited to the Caribbean in July. It was fairly thick, and I feel like the gods have smiled on us this morning and given me the heat and the humidity to remind me of what it was like to be in the Caribbean at that time. But I found myself in a television studio in Grenada, and I will come back to that. But it was one of those moments when time expands outward and you have minutes, it seems, worth of thought process in mere seconds. And you come to some collective understanding of an experience. That was right at the end of the trip. But the trip began not in Grenada, but in Antigua Barbuda, joined 2 islands that have formed a single nation. And I was to give a performance, a command performance for the Queen's Regent. Many of the Commonwealth nations that are independent nation states still have a representative of the Queen. And I was sort of groomed, if you will, on protocol, to treat this woman as if she were the Queen herself, to speak only if spoken to accept a hand only when it was offered, to keep a certain distance, to never turn my back on her within a certain distance, to back away from her. It was very foreign to me, but I was there on a diplomatic exchange, so I was open to learning new ideas. And it was a hall about twice the size of this room. It was even warmer and muggier. And there I am in a suit and tie. And they specifically wanted me to sing songs from the U.S. social justice movements that spread around the world. So I'm on stage, and this very, very stoic woman in her late 70s is in front of me, and she has a gentleman in his mid-60s who is wearing a military uniform, her honor guard. And they are among the most stoic individuals I have met in my entire life. And the gallery is filled with young people wearing shorts and T-shirts, and there was a community gathering to hear the concert. The sound system had failed, and the entire performance was coming through a little bass amplifier right beside me, and that's not the ideal circumstance for vocal sounds, to come through an amplifier made for bass guitar, but es costumbre. The ways of the place, we follow them. We do what is needed, and there I am doing my thing, and I start singing, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water." I'm singing, and all of a sudden the Queen's Regent starts singing along with me. And her honor guard just kind of like this sideways glance, like, that's different. And I sing, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. The Queen's Regent stands up and starts clapping her hands and looking around at like, come young people, participate with me. And the honor guard just kind of dropped his jaw like in astonishment. I think he had never seen such behavior from this woman, and certainly not in public. And after the performance, I was invited up to greet her, and she broke all protocol. And mind you, again, Caribbean July, me in a wool suit, I was not really fit for embracing. To say I was schwitzing was like mildly stated. And she embraced me fully and then held my shoulders and looked at me and said, my parents were part of the Harlem Renaissance. And they sent me to go to college in Harlem during the late 1950s and into the 1960s. I was a part of that movement. I was in those marches, and I sang those songs, and I never thought I would hear them again. I never thought I would hear someone sing those songs with such passion. Thank you for bringing those songs here. These young people up in the gallery, they need to hear these songs. They need to know that civil rights are human rights. They need to know that in our young democracy, this is what we should be striving for. This kind of equality, this kind of connectedness, this spirit of transformation, of building a new nation that is better than the old one. I was absolutely humbled and astonished, and also very hot. I could not wait to get out of there. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, wow, the Queen's Regent just gave me a hug, like this sweaty, burly folk singer, you know. But it was a remarkable moment of recognizing the power of music and the power of ideas to transcend cultural differences. I found myself some years later at a Unitarian church in suburban New Jersey in the midst of quite a kerfuffle. There was a man there who was a self-avowed libertarian and usually voted Republican. No one was entirely clear why he attended the Unitarian Universalist congregation in the neighborhood when his politics were fairly different from those who were there, but he was a man of deep heart, deep spirit, deep conscience, and a deep sense of community. And he had proposed that this was a church that had once been a neighborhood church, and yet the people who attended that church had all moved further out into the suburbs. It had become a neighborhood surrounded mostly by folks who were of different ethnic origins, that were connected to different religious traditions, more overt Christian traditions. And he felt like there was still a call to be a neighborhood church, to reach out to the Latino, Latina, Latinx community, to reach out to the Black community, to reach out to the immigrant communities. And he said, let's hold a pig roast in the parking lot. For many people, food is the most overt and accessible form of cultural bridge building. After 9/11, I was living in Cleveland, and there was a group called the Blue Triangle Network. When the Third Reich did not know what other stamp to put on people that they found objectionable, they would stick on them a blue triangle. And it was kind of a catch-all category. But there's a huge Arab American population in Cleveland and Toledo and Detroit, and they started calling that the Blue Triangle. And after 9/11, there were so many overt threats against the Arab American communities there. And so a coalition formed, an interfaith coalition, to host community potlucks, sometimes at ancillary buildings to mosques, sometimes in ancillary buildings as part of synagogues, and sometimes at various churches in the region. And I had fattoush for the first time, an amazing salad that comes from the Middle East and other things. And this dialogue happened. It was all because we sat down together, shared the cuisine of our people, and engaged in conversation. So I had a frame of reference for what this guy was trying to do, but I'm sure you can have some appreciation for the debates that happened at the committee level and congregation-wide within a Unitarian church about spending collective resources to buy a pig that would be roasted in the parking lot. The vegetarians and vegans were very upset about this. Environmental impact statements were drawn up. It was quite the thing. And this guy was just like, I'm just trying to be neighborly, and the language that many of our neighbors speak is food. So if we roast a pig, they'll show up, and then they'll see that we're not a bunch of freaks. They'll see that we're just good people that happen to worship in their neighborhood. And he got so much pushback, but I was there. They invited me to lead the service on the day of the pig roast, unbeknownst to me, and I walked into the midst of this chaos. And I could immediately see what was going on. I could see that next to music, that food is an even more universal bridge builder. And so I found myself in absolute solidarity with someone whose political views were substantively different than my own, but whose human values were basically identical, who believed in radical hospitality as the first and most consequential step in building bridges and engaging in diplomacy. Somewhere in there is a song that I haven't written yet about that pig roast, but I may get there someday. So there I am in the Caribbean, and I've had this experience with the Queen's Region, and then I'm on radio stations and interviews, and people keep asking me this question. You sing songs that are, to our ears, very patriotic. You celebrate workers and laborers and the people and the rights of the people, and yet the news we hear from your country would suggest that your views are at odds with the views of your nation as a whole. Why would your government send you as a representative here? And I thought about it a little bit, and I had some answers. And then I found myself reflecting on something that I had heard President Obama say in his Nobel speech just a year before. The promotion of human rights cannot be about exhortation alone. At times, it must be coupled with painstaking diplomacy. I know that engagement with repressive regimes lacks the satisfying purity of indignation. But I also know that sanctions without outreach, condemnation without discussion, can carry forward only a crippling status quo. No repressive regime can move down a new path unless it has the choice of an open door. These words never seemed more prescient to me than when Russia invaded Ukraine. I know that sanctions without outreach, condemnation without discussion, can carry forward only a crippling status quo. No repressive regime can move down a new path unless it has the choice of an open door. I don't know what that open door looks like right now. I don't know what it looks like in Ukraine, and I don't know what it looks like in Buffalo. I do know that President Obama was spot on in his awareness when he says, I know that engagement with repressive regimes lacks the satisfying purity of indignation. The work of diplomacy is, I think, for many of us, assumed to be the work of other people, assumed to be the work of trained diplomats, assumed to be the work of qualified professionals. And yet each one of us is called into this bridge-building work in some fashion, in our families, in our circle of friends, in service organizations in which we might participate, in our spiritual community. We are all called into the work of diplomacy, called to check our first or maybe our second or even our third response to a thing in order to try and understand where another person is coming from and why they are saying or doing the things that they are doing. And indeed, it does lack the satisfaction of indignation. But that indignation inhibits the bridge building that will lead to more common ground or an understanding of the common ground that we already share. And I have an easier time internationally or even nationally than I do within my own family system. I occasionally in my own family system like to sit in that place of judgment and indignation. And these lessons are hardest to learn the closer they are to our own heart. Harold George Nicholson, Sir Harold George Nicholson eventually, was the son of a diplomat, he himself a diplomat who became a journalist and an author. He spent a lot of time in India and in Iraq and Iran. He said this late in his life: "These then are the qualities of my ideal diplomatist: truth, accuracy, calm, patience, good temper, modesty, and loyalty." They are also qualities of an ideal diplomacy. But the reader may object, you have forgotten intelligence, knowledge, discernment, prudence, hospitality, charm, industry, courage, and even tact. I have not forgotten them. I have taken them for granted. There are many ways in which we get to enter the world in a spirit of diplomacy, many ways in which we get to seek to build intentional community. But I have been privileged to find music a universal language in doing that work. What an immense gift it has been for the last 23 years full-time on the road, and a decade before that, starting in my teens, to make music and to do so for many diverse groups of people. I was 14 years old when I started playing out professionally and got a gig on a boat that traveled up and down the Rock River in my hometown of Rockford, Illinois. And it was kind of an amazing thing for me personally because it was the first time I witnessed playing music for a broader group of people. Before then, I was playing music in school or playing music at church. I was surrounded by like-minded or familiar communities, but on that small tourist riverboat, I was playing music for a much broader group of people. And I could see what songs resonate with some people or others, or begin to figure out how to use music as a tool to help everybody feel somehow included in the evening. Ancillary to that, I will say that I was getting paid $50 a night to play music on a boat when my friends were making $3.25 an hour flipping burgers at Burger King. And so I'm probably one of the few people who was enticed into becoming a professional musician because it represented in my life economic advancement. But, you know, there are many lenses through which we look at the world, many lenses through which we see the world. As a result of the talents we have different experiences. The adults around us cultivate those ideas or encourage us to cultivate them. Each one of us has a unique skill set. Mine happens to be music. I also love to cook, but all of us, everyone here has some skill set that is useful in building bridges in community and building bridges between communities. So I find myself toward the end of this trip in the Caribbean in a television studio in Grenada. The Minister of Culture in Grenada is a little bit like the head of the National Endowment for the Arts and the head of the Federal Communications Commission rolled into one. Sort of a complicated system in a city roughly the size of Evanston, Illinois, in a country that is roughly the size and population of Evanston, Illinois. There's a doubling up of roles sometimes because there aren't enough people to pull it all off. But I think one of his deals when he left being a full-time actor and went into government service was that he would get to host a television show, and every Friday he hosted a television show that focused on the arts and on culture, and he would interview people. And so there I am with the Charge d'Affaires for the U.S. Embassy in Grenada and the Minister of Culture on this live national television broadcast. And after singing some songs of work and labor, some songs from the civil rights movement, some songs of my own that tied in with these things, the minister turns to the charge and says, "Mr. Link, we find it very interesting that the United States has invited Mr. Jencks to be here as a cultural diplomat. We very much appreciate his music and resonate with it deeply as a people, but he obviously has opinions that are contrary to those of even his own government, and yet here he is. Can you explain to us why your government would bring someone like him here? And Mr. Link, in true diplomatic form, says, Minister, that's a marvelous question. I would like to let Mr. Jencks answer that. Thanks for that. And in one of these marvelous moments where like a grace beyond my understanding flowed through me, I opened my mouth and these ideas came out. I said, Minister, first, let me thank you for the kind welcome to Grenada, truly one of the most beautiful places I have ever been. As to your question, I feel like the message that the U.S. State Department would want to impart to a young democracy like Grenada is that the voice of dissent must be a part of public discourse. It must be a part of civil discourse. If you silence that voice, somewhere you are losing an opportunity to build a consensus decision that may be more nuanced and more useful to more people than if one faction or another were solely responsible for that process. A robust debate and discussion in society is necessary in order to find the pathway that best serves the most number of people. And I think that is why my government would invite me, someone who frequently is in disagreement with my own country's policies and practices, to come here, because it is a demonstration of the strength of our nation and of our process of democracy that we can endure the voice of dissent. He really appreciated the answer. When we left the television studio and headed out to lunch, the chargé d'affaires turned to me and said, have you ever thought about taking your foreign service exam? And I said, well, no, actually, I hadn't. Why? He said, if the folk singing thing ever goes cold for you, consider it, because he said, I would hire you in a heartbeat. I can train people on policy. I cannot teach people the spirit of the work. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. He said, you already understand. You understand what this work is about. And I was very honored. I have no intention of giving up this career doing work through music, but it was a marvelous affirmation to have someone in a very high position in our State Department recognize the value of the arts in building bridges, the value of music in building community. That was really my takeaway. It was less personal and more about the power of music, the power of a good potluck, you know, the power of these little things that we do that bring people together, that introduce us to new ideas, even if it's just a new way of cooking a particular food. We build some bridge that strengthens the fabric of community. So there I was, again, drenched. This was an old school television studio with like carbon arc lights in it. I mean, it was probably 103 degrees in that television studio by the time we were done. And yet that was my last public engagement on that trip. And it felt like I had come through some karmic test and passed. The last opportunity I had was a free afternoon, and they asked me what I would like to do, and I said, is there a Central Labor Council in Grenada? Is there some equivalent to the AFL-CIO? And we went out and found some folks that were tied in with the labor movement and ended up spending a chunk of the afternoon with a gentleman who was head of their equivalent of a Central Labor Council. And he was a very gracious man who explained some astonishing things to me about the history of Grenada, about the history of their peaceful revolution, and then a civil war that broke out in the wake of that, and U.S. intervention. And it was very, very educational to hear these stories from his perspective. But one of the things that I learned is that while he was in prison for 20 years for his role in the peaceful revolution, he was a professor when that revolution began, and many of his colleagues were. And they began a university inside the one federal prison in Grenada. And a lot of the young people that came in for various crimes, they would begin to educate, and they got accredited for giving high school diplomas, and then they got accredited for associate's degrees. And as the young people advanced and continued to be incarcerated, they got accredited to hand out 4-year degrees from within the prison, because there were so many incarcerated intellectuals who simply wanted to teach. What an amazing thing to build a university inside a prison, and to say, okay, well, if this is where I'm going to be, I'm going to keep doing the work of my life. When we travel, we have the opportunity to learn, to see, to come to some understanding of the world around us in a different way, independent of the headlines, independent of the political agenda. And when we take time to do that, to notice the people that live where we are, not just the other tourists, but to notice the people who make a particular society function and thrive, when we strike up a dialogue with them, we are indeed doing the work of diplomacy. It's worth going out of our way to do those things. And it's easy to miss that this is not just work that happens on foreign soil, but work that happens right here, right now, in our own communities. This is work that is absolutely necessary, because we are not one nation. We are not the great melting pot. We are an amalgamation of hundreds of different cultures and societies, all overlapping and interacting in one place. And so this idea of diplomacy is not just about what you do if you happen to travel to another country, but what you do when you happen to travel to another county. It is work for all of us to do. And there is a deep spiritual underpinning for this work. Rabbi Hillel, about 30 years before the arc of the ministry of Jesus the Nazarene, Rabbi Hillel is asked in temple by the other scholarly rabbis, if you're such a smart rabbi, can you preach the whole Torah while standing on one foot? And he lifts his leg and says, love the Lord your God above all else, and love your neighbor as yourself. The rest is commentary. These words are recycled in Christian scripture in the Gospels when Jesus is challenged, and he places himself squarely in the rabbinical tradition. He stands squarely on the shoulders of Rabbi Hillel when he, presumably standing on both feet, says, love the Lord your God above all else, and love your neighbor as yourself. The piece of this spiritual principle we're talking about in diplomacy is love your neighbor as yourself. 1/2 of the total equation that one of the great spiritual leaders said we must follow. 50% of the pathway of spiritual clarity in his mind was love your neighbor as yourself. That is the work that we are up to. That is the work that we are about as a community, as Unitarian Universalists in the world, as individuals in community, is learning better how to love each other well, and learning what the many incarnations of that love can look like. I'd like to sing a song for you now that I wrote pretty early in the pandemic. It's called Love Will Guide My Way, and it feels apropos of the moment.
I will greet the morning, and I will greet the day, and I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. I will greet the morning, I will greet the day. I will greet the day, I'll greet the evening. I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. The sun goes down, the sun comes up, the earth goes round, and I fill my cup with the goodness all around me. I know love will guide my way. I will greet the morning, and I will greet the day, and I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. Money comes and the money goes. I count my blessings, count my woes, but the kindness all around me grows. Love will guide my way. I will greet the morning, I will greet the morning, and I will greet the day, and I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. by internet or mobile phones. Through gentle or impassioned tones, love will guide my way. I will greet the morning, and I will greet the day, and I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. Through times of fear and sadness, through times of joy and gladness, through apocalyptic madness, I know love will guide the way. I will greet the morning, I will greet the day, I will greet the day, I'll greet the evening, I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. So put your hands up to the rafters, sing and shout with laughter. 'Cause if it's hope you're after, I know love will guide the way. I will greet the morning, and I will greet the day, I will greet the evening. Love will guide my way. We will greet the morning, we will greet the day, we will greet the evening. Love will guide the way. We will greet the evening. Love will guide the way. Through whatever else may happen, I know love will guide the way.
Sorry? Life is a hard battle anyway. If we laugh and sing a little as we fight the good fight of freedom, it makes it all go easier. I will not allow my life's light to be determined by the darkness around me. Sojourner Truth. So be it. I wish you peace and every blessing on your journey as you learn to cherish each and every day. May your tears be those of healing. May your laughter bring you joy, and may true love be your companion on the way. I wish you peace. I wish you peace and every blessing. Every blessing on your journey as you learn to cherish each and every day. May your tears be those of healing. May your laughter bring you joy, and may true love be your companion on the way. I would invite you to rise as you are willing or able or feel called to. Stay seated if that's your preference. We will sing a closing song together. You don't know it yet, but don't worry, you will before the song is over. I have imminent faith in your capacity to sing without a script. This is a song that I wrote after nearly drowning in the Klamath River in Northern California. There was a woman on retreat with us that week who saved my life. I used to be a Red Cross certified lifeguard, so I fancied myself to be a strong swimmer. But I forgot that that sense of self was about 10 years out of date when I dove into a very wide and fast-moving mountain river. And I got myself in trouble because I had that overdeveloped and out-of-date sense of my own capacity. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever done that, but it was embarrassing to me in the moment such that I was disinclined to ask for help. In precisely the moment when I most needed to ask for help, I was not inclined to do so. Pride will mess with you in that way. And I started to see sunlight through about a foot of river water and foam, and I started to take water in my lungs, and I began to wonder if this might be my last mistake, if this was the end, if this was it. And, I was looking for the light. They say, look for the light, look for the light. When you get to the end of your life, look for the light. And I didn't really see it. And then I thought, oh yeah, God knows I'm a Unitarian. Probably not going to see that. Okay. Well, then I started thinking maybe it'll be like in the movies where I see this flash, this stream of images from throughout my whole life that kind of brings it home and helps me understand in some way what I've been through. That didn't happen either. I was starting to get disappointed. And then I had my moment of transcendent understanding. I saw the headline that would appear the next day in the Arcata newspaper. And it read, "Obscure folk singer dies in freak river accident." That was all the motivation I needed to use literally my last breath and push myself above the surface of the waters, and with that last breath cry out for help. To my eternal benefit, there was a woman with us on retreat that week who was a current Red Cross certified lifeguard. And she jumped in the water with me, but she didn't do the lifeguard carries that I had learned when I was younger. She didn't drag me to shore. She just started to tread water, and she invited me to place my hands on her shoulders, which I did. And in this very intimate place, face to face in this torrent, she tells me to take a deep breath. Try one of those deep breaths wherever you are with us here in the sanctuary or at home or somewhere else. Just, yeah, and another. She told me to keep breathing until she saw the color return to my cheeks and the panic leave my eyes. And then she said, "Okay, let's keep swimming." I thought, "What do you mean, let's keep swimming? You're here to save me." Which is exactly what she did. She separated me from my panic, reconnected me to my breath, separated me from the fear, and reconnected me to my own power. She got in the trouble with me and stayed with me until we were both safe. She saved me, but not in the way that I expected. She saved me by being present with me on the journey. That is the gift that we give each other when we gather in intentional community, not just on Sunday mornings, but throughout the week. The knowledge that this community holds us up and sustains us when the water is rough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being custodians of this beautiful community. The song is called "Come With Me." Will you come with me on this journey? With every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone that I will falter, but with a good friend near me, I will carry on.
Will you come with me on this journey? With every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone, I know alone, that I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. I feel the current raging around me, try to summon up my strength once more. I am weary on this journey, afraid I will not reach that distant shore. I cry for help, feel like I'm sinking. There is no one near me I can see, but there you are in the water with me. You take my hand and guide me graciously. Will you come with me? Will you come with me on this journey? On this journey, with every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone that I will falter, that I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. There is a kindness in your smile and a gentleness within your speech. You reassure me, your love surrounds me. I know safety is at last within my reach. Will you come with me? Will you come with me on this journey? On this journey, with every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone, I know alone, I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. It's an illusion we carry with us as we wade on through the waters of our lives. That we must be strong and hold our own here, but a helping hand will save us by and by. Will you come with me? Will you come with me on this journey? On this journey, every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. With a good friend near me, I will carry on.
Thank you so much for the kind welcome. I do want to thank Bonnie Whitehurst for helping coordinate my presence here today. An extraordinary musician. You're very lucky to have her in your community, and an amazing human being. Judy, thank you, and Reverend Kristina. I want to thank all of you for your support in helping me be present with all of you today. We have our chalice extinguishing words here that Judy will give us.
As flame is to spirit, so spirit is to breath, and breath to song. Though we extinguish the flame in this sanctuary, may we tend it in our hearts until we meet again.
And I say to you, beloved, that our worship is ended, but our service continues every moment of every day.
I have a couple of announcements. Is that okay? Well, today we're having the benefit for the Ukrainian people, and it's going to be at Brennan Sports Club up on alternate 19 before you get to 19. And Peter will be joining us there and leading a bunch of musicians to help us raise money for Ukrainians. And by the way, I just sent a check for over $1,000 to the World Central Kitchen. Thank you for your donations. So we'll see what's going on in this one. And as you know, we've got Buddha's birthday brunch today. So please join us and take an opportunity to meet our friends on Zoom in the forum room. You can speak to them. Get close to the microphone. And I thank you all for coming and enjoying this wonderful service. Go in peace.